fun.
Not at school. You're going to lose your student card to do that. No kids have fun at school. This would be Wednesday, November 12th, regular class. We're going to go ahead and finish out our story of the voices. To do a quick recap of where we got to yesterday, who's our main character in the story? Sam. And where does the story start off?
In his bedroom.
Bedroom. And what happened to Sam?
He got a nightmare. He's being haunted.
He has a dream.
Woke up because he was screaming, and why was he screaming?
Because his parents died.
And why did he didn't die, but
He had a bad dream about his parents burning in a car.
parents burning in a car wreck. And then when he tries to go back to sleep, what happens?
He hears voices.
Nicely done. And what do the voices say?
Dead.
Then apparently it gets, thank you, El Gali. Go ahead, throw it away. Extra points. I figured I'd catch you eventually, or you'd stop. Apparently.
Oh,
wow.
Throw it away. Okay, thank you, Mike. Then let's go to, it gets even scarier from there. And where does it go to next?
the classroom.
Science, which is the scariest place of all. And we get to, now it's not voices that's bothering him.
Oh, it's his eyes.
Nice, well done. The fact that now it's his eyes. Not having fun at school. And with the eyes, and then what's happening with the eyes?
He's white.
So we got to the whiteness and the switching back and forth. Nice, well done. And then and then El Gali, you are currently at 7 points. You're going to want to get points soon. Or not make 4 choices, but each their own. Alright, so we are about halfway down in that second column. Oh, one other thing. Do you guys know what foreshadowing is?
Yes.
Good. What's foreshadowing, Bumble?
Foreshadowing is like you're like acting something.
No, but a good guess. Ball?
It's when like they're giving little hints about what's gonna happen later in the story.
Yeah, there are little hints in the story to help you out. On your little note thing here, if you want to write if you know what it is, you're good to go. If not, then you can write it in there because it will be on the quiz coming up. Where you're going to know what foreshadowing is. And so on there, it has a little spot where it says foreshadowing. Foreshadowing are going to be the clues in the story to let you know what's happening. The reason is, you guys remember how the Lady and the Tiger ended? And how it was just an ending and it made you mad?
Yeah.
This one's similar.
What?
I'm not done. Except, if you use foreshadowing in the story, you can find out exactly what happened. So once you finish, we're going to go back and talk about it. You're going to figure out what's happening in all these different scenes, and it makes more sense. Like if you just read the story, like, it makes more sense if you get it. Then we go back and pick up the foreshadowing, it makes much more sense. All right, Ball, you ready?
Yeah.
We're about halfway down where it says, Mr. Tynes, are you okay?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, quickly, what's up?
Can I have that one of those papers?
I can hook you up in a moment. Go, Ball.
Mr. Tynes, are you okay? A voice in the front of the room asked. He spun in his seat to see Mrs. Larks looking at him with concern in her eyes. He stared at her for about 3 heartbeats as he tried to focus with his only good eye. Mr. Tynes, you're not looking well. Would you like to go to the nurse? With a final burst of cream-colored light, his right eye suddenly filled with the stereo image of his left. His vision had returned. He rose to his feet, feeling surprisingly steady but scared. His vision was fine, but his mind, or his head at least, most certainly was not. Yes, ma'am, I think I would, Sam replied. May I ask what's wrong? My head hurts is all. I should be fine if I can get some aspirin or something, he told her. Well, I hope you feel better. Go ahead and grab the pass off the wall and head down. You can get the homework from a friend when you get back. Thanks, ma'am. I should be fine once I get something for my head. He walked up to the front of the room and grabbed the laminated blue pass off its hook on the wall. He didn't have to turn to feel the eyes of the class on him as he walked out. Even though he was just going to the nurse, he could still feel all the attention being directed at him. He could actually feel the silence in the room as all the eyes behind him followed his progress from the teacher's desk to the door. God, he thought, this is beginning to feel like a really bad dream.
They're all dead.
He stopped in his tracks with his hand on the door. The voice, the one he had heard this morning, the one he had thought was just a bad dream, The deep male voice that had haunted his thoughts since that morning. Who's dead? The thought raced through his head. Is the class dead?
Over there.
The voice spoke again. He turned to look, one hand still on the doorknob. The class was staring at him. Mrs. Larks was looking at him. He could hear the first few giggles erupt in different places in the class. Where? Sam asked out loud. Who is dead? More giggles burst out from within the class. He could hear Trevor's voice asking, Hey man, you okay? Who are you talking to? His teacher's voice again in his ears. No one's dead, Sam. Why would anyone be dead? She paused for a moment and added, Do you need someone to go to the nurse with? Sam vigorously shook his head back and forth. No, Mrs. Larks, I don't need that. Then he asked, Did you hear the voice? The guy saying people are dead? Did anyone hear the voice? He scanned the room with his eyes, looking for anyone nodding their head yes, but no one was. They all looked scared at him, even Trevor.
We're almost there.
That's creepy. He heard the original soft, whispery voice say, the same voice he had first heard that morning. The voice didn't sound scary at all. It sounded soft and friendly, but it still managed to scare him. It really made him want to know. Almost swear he heard his own voice say out loud.
Thanks, Paul. So we continue to have more, or Sam continues to have more issues. And so what has returned for him?
The voices.
And so he tries to go down to the nurse, but before he can leave, what do the voices tell him?
They're all dead.
Nicely done. So he's trying, but baby steps. Then we have those little dots at the top of that next column, which means we're going to jump to a new location, a new scene later in the day as we get a chance to go on from there. Sydney, how would you let me know that you wanted to read? Paul, do you want to read?
Sure.
Go for it, Paul.
Man, Trevor said at lunch, you really had us freaked out today in Mrs. Lark's class.
And who's Trevor?
He's
Sorry,
from.
keep going.
I thought you were going all psycho on us or something. Your eyes were all flipped out, and the way you kept talking about dead people and stuff, that was spooky. You sure you're okay? Sam looked up from his softy dough and gave his friend a smile. I don't know if you would say I'm okay, but I'm feeling better at least. This morning I was really stuck, Trev.
This morning has really sucked, Trev.
I don't even think I could put into words how messed up it has been. He took another bite of his sandwich and chewed slowly, looking at his plate. Are you going to try? Are you going to try?
Are you gonna?
Are you gonna try? The question coming from his friend. Try what? Sam asked.
Sheesh.
Sheesh. To explain to me, Trevor said it, and Trevor said
In an exasperated.
Exasperated tone. I haven't spoken with you since Mrs. Larks
Took.
took you to the nurse. You say weird stuff has been happening. Well, what kind of weird stuff?
Real quick, we jump to a new location. Where's the new location? And so who's he sitting with?
Trevor.
Yeah, they're talking about what all these issues that happened to him. Alright, Sydney, from there.
Sam replied, well, voices for one thing. I have been hearing voices, apparently from people that aren't there. I can hear them just fine, but I seem to be the only one. Wow, voices, really? That's kind of cool. That's like full-blown crazy person stuff. I've never known a real crazy person before. Sam looked up at his friend in time to see his smile. It's not funny, Trevor. It's really scaring me. And there are bright lights going off in my eyes. It's like I'm looking at a light bulb with only one eye. It doesn't hurt, but it's weird and it's creepy. And I don't like it. I want it to stop. And you're bleeding, Trevor said. No, Trevor. It's all been in my head so far. I haven't actually been hurt or anything. No, man, you're bleeding, Trevor said. Excitedly. Check out your arm. What? Sam asked as he looked down at his right arm. Trevor was right. There was blood coming out of the crook in his elbow. It seemed to be quite a bit of blood too.
Do you guys know where the crook is in the elbow?
Like right.
Yeah,
No.
the inside.
Oh,
That's that
in
little
here.
part right there. So blood is just sort of like coming out of his body.
That's gross.
Keep going from there, Bumble.
He grabbed some napkins off his tray and
What the?
Oh, what the? Sam exclaimed while swiping at his arm. The arm tingled now, and it felt funny, but it didn't really hurt. He grabbed some napkins off his tray and wiped at the blood. He saw it was coming out of a small hole on the inner bend of his elbow, and it was right on the vein. It was like the vein had just opened up and started shooting blood out his arm.
That's cool.
What's wrong with it? Trevor blurted, and then asked more quietly, Is there anything I can do to help? Yeah, Sam replied. Give me your napkins and go get a large band-aid.
What's wrong?
A soft voice asked. Sam spun his chair to see nobody near him. Who said that? He whispered.
Stop fighting it!
A much stronger voice resounded on his other side. He quickly looked to the side of the new voice and saw the same sight, nothing.
Losing him.
The soft voice again. It sounded, what was it? Anxious? Worried? He wasn't sure, but it didn't sound good.
Falling.
A new voice this time. But what was falling? Sam thought he missed the beginning of whatever it was the voice said, and it bothered him. Something important was falling, and it seemed to involve him.
So we've had voices, we've had lights, and now what does he have? Blood just coming out of his arm. And of course
Going
the
psycho.
voices are still there, because that just makes things fun. I'm going to pick up and read to make sure that we get a chance to get done, because I don't want to leave you guys hanging. So make sure we get a chance to finish, then I can explain the ending to make sure we don't get confused. He didn't know, we have a little dot. What do little dots mean? He didn't know any of this. Sam looked at the math test again and sighed. All that studying he'd done, it was no help. None of these questions made any sense to him, almost like it was written in a language he couldn't understand. He looked at the first question and rubbed at the bandage on his arm. The stupid thing still hurt and wouldn't stop bleeding. It had been bleeding for almost 2 hours now. Stupid slow trickle that didn't seem to stop. Sam snuck a quick peek around the room to see if anyone else was having trouble with the test. No one else was looking up. They all seemed to be writing furiously. All right then, Sam said quietly to himself. I studied. This should be easy. Let's try the first problem again. Let's see how we can get the square root of... Not gonna make it, said a loud voice just above his left ear. Not again, Sam moaned out loud. Make the voices stop. Tell me who you're talking about. You're driving me crazy. Sam finished his rant in a voice loud enough to nearly qualify as a shout. Well, Mr. Tynes, talking during a test will drive me crazy, his algebra teacher, Mr. Finns, told him. I've heard you had a rough day, Samuel, but please keep quiet during the test. Shock 'em! The voice was louder now and almost seemed angry. I'm shocked! I'm shocked! Sam shouted back at the voice. This whole freaking day's been shocking. I don't want any more surprises. If you want to really shock me, try leaving me alone. Yeah, that would shock me. Mr. Tynes, I am shocked also. I am shocked a good student such as yourself would behave like this. That is quite enough. I will not have an outburst like this in class, especially during a test. Clear! The voice drowned out Mr. Finn's last few words. The voice was insistent this time, almost yelling, but not sounding like it was directed at him. Sam stood and looked around the room. Is what clear? Nothing is clear. I don't understand any of this. Some of you are figuring it out, but shh. The pain that suddenly shot through his chest knocked him off his feet and dropped him onto his butt. His heart and lungs and chest had just simply exploded. His eyes swam with the pain. His buzzing fingertips reminded him of the time he electrocuted himself, screwing in the light bulb up in his attic. He slowly looked down at his chest to see how big the gunshot wound was. It had to have been a bullet. Nothing else could hurt this much. Nothing. No blood. No hole. No bullet. Just intense pain. It hurt so much that he could do little more than just sit there with his mouth open and gawk at his own uninjured chest. No response! The voice yelled at him. What the bejesus? Sam thought. What do you mean no response? What kind of response did you want? It knocked him off his feet. It made his chest explode. He felt like he was dying. Clear! The voice bellowed at him. No, it's not, squeaked Sam in a whisper. I don't know what you want. How can it be clear? Who are you? Why are you doing... Another explosion of pain blasted his chest. He could actually feel his body jerk and jump as something like electricity shot through his entire body. His vision blurred. He could see the classroom and the stunned expressions of his classmates and teacher. as they melted into the whiteness that was surrounding his vision. His hearing seemed to fade as the classroom sounds dissolved. I'm dying, he thought. So this is what it's like. But why? Why do they have to kill me? What did I do to them? Stable, he heard the soft voice tell him as his consciousness blinked out. Sam awoke and saw a white room he didn't recognize. He could smell disinfectant. He heard the voices of people far away, maybe in a hallway. He tried to sit up, but was stopped by the pain that shot through his body. Oh man, he hurt. That last shock hadn't killed him, but his body sure ached like it had tried. Thought we lost you, a voice said from off to his left. The soft voice he'd heard before, so the voices weren't done with him yet. Not again, Sam told the voice. Why can't you all just leave me alone? Because you probably would have died if we'd done that, the voice replied. The voice had just answered him. The voices never answered, they just spoke. He slowly turned his head to that side. So how you feeling, kiddo? The nurse standing next to his bed asked, using the voice he'd come to recognize and dread. Who are you? Where am I? What's going on? How did you manage to... He trailed off, looking at this lady who was staring at him, adjusting a clear plastic bag hanging on a pole next to his bed. His eyes followed the thin tube connected to the bottom of the bag, followed it down until it connected with his arms, connected with a needle inserted into the bend of his right elbow, exactly where he'd been bleeding before. You were incredibly lucky to survive that car wreck. If you hadn't been wearing your seatbelt, then you'd been thrown through the windshield just like your... She stopped short and looked at him again. It was a concerned, motherly look. Well, you're lucky to be alive anyway. Car wreck? Sam asked her. What car wreck? You mean the one in my dream? The nurse wrinkled her nose and gave him an odd look. That was no dream, sweetie. It was more like a nightmare. From what I understand, you almost died last night in the emergency room, too. Your heart just stopped. The doctors had to shock you to get your heart started. Shock me? Sam asked. An eerie thought was beginning to creep up Sam's spine and nudge its way into his brain. Yes, Sam. They had to use the defibrillators to get your heart beating again. If they hadn't, you'd be dead right now.
I get it.
So,
That was good.
what are defibrillators?
They're like those little electric thingies.
Shock pads. So, what is it? We have all these different foreshadowings. What is it we can figure out happened to him?
He was in a car wreck that he thought was his dream, and the voices were doctors.
Nicely done. And so as you go through the whole thing, when he saw the white lights,
Flashlights!
the pressure on his eyes, so he's checking his eyes to make sure that his eyes were working. The blood that was on his arm,
IV!
nicely done. When his chest explodes, when the voices say they're all dead. So what happened to his family?
They're all dead! Because they didn't wear seatbelts!
Mike, I'm assuming that they didn't wear seatbelts. Good job. I'm assuming you enjoyed this story.
I like this story!
My request to you is to not tell my other classes what happened. Because as I said, my goal is to make each story better than the previous one. So if I find out you tell kids what happened with this one, I'll make you wait in the hallway when we do the next one. So choose wisely. Information is power.